गुड इवनिंग एंड वेलकम टू गना शॉट। गना शॉट में आप सबको दोबारा स्वागत है। आज हम बात राइट आज हम बात करने वाले हैं पाकिस्तान एज अ बैटल ग्राउंड स्टेट। और पाकिस्तान एज अ बैटल ग्राउंड स्टेट में हमारे साथ जुड़े हैं ब्रिगेडियर अरुण सहगल। सर, गुड इवनिंग एंड वेलकम टू द शो।
Thank you, sir, for inviting me.
थैंक यू। एंड इससे पहले कि मैं बिफोर आई हैंड द stage over to Brigadier Arun Sahgal, let me put in perspective हम कर क्यों रहे हैं, ये सब क्या कर रहे हैं हम। जैसे आपको पता है, पाकिस्तान का हालत जो है आजकल काफी नाजुक है हर तरीके से। आप वेदर इट इज द आर्मी, वेदर इट्स देयर पॉलिटिक्स, देयर जुडिशरी और इकोनॉमिक्स, तो हमें सबको पता है कि फाइनेंशियली दे आर इन अ वेरी बैड शेप। इसीलिए हमने ये पूरा सिलसिला शुरू किया, फ्यूचर ऑफ पाकिस्तान सीरीज। और इस फ्यूचर ऑफ पाकिस्तान सीरीज में सबसे पहले हमने जो पाकिस्तान आर्मी के अंदर जो रिफ्ट्स हैं, द रिफ्ट्स इन द पाकिस्तान आर्मी, द डिफरेंसेस, ये सब हमने डिस्कस किया। देन वी डिस्कस्ड कि अगर इमरान खान वापस आते हैं सत्ता में तो उसका क्या परिणाम होगा। और इसीलिए हमने ये डिस्कस किया खास करके क्योंकि ऐसा लग रहा है कि दैट मिस्टर इमरान खान विल कम बैक टू पावर इफ इलेक्शंस आर हेल्ड एंड इफ ही इज नॉट असैसिनेटेड, क्योंकि उसके असैसिनेशन के भी अफवाहें उड़ रहे हैं और एक बार एक अटेम्प्ट भी हो गया, वो कहते हैं। उसके बाद हमने एग्जामिन किया रेडिकलाइजेशन आउटकम्स इन पाकिस्तान, राइट, एंड दैट वाज अ वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग डिस्कशन क्योंकि इट अपीयर्स एज इफ द होल कंट्री इज radicalized. Then we had this very nice discussion on the CPC fallout and the end game. CPC क्यों हमने इंक्लूड किया मैं बताना चाहता हूं, क्योंकि अगर पाकिस्तान को रिवाइव करने का एकमात्र आउटसाइड चांस है तो इट इज थ्रू CPC, राइट, एंड दैट एग्जामिनेशन आल्सो रिवील टू अस कि उसमें ज्यादा होप नहीं है। फिर हमने कल ताहिर गोरा साहब से बात किया, जो पाकिस्तानी हैं, जो टोरंटो में बसे हुए हैं, कि वेयर इज पाकिस्तान हेडेड, और उनका जवाब ये था कि भाई पाकिस्तान जहां होना चाहिए तो ऑलरेडी आप पहुंचा है वहां, तो उनका भी होप ज्यादा नहीं था, राइट। और इसी बीच में हम ये भी देख रहे हैं कि पाकिस्तान हैज बिकम अ प्लेस वेयर सुपर पावर्स आर बैटलिंग फॉर इन्फ्लुएंस, बैटलिंग फॉर मेनी थिंग्स। वो हम आज बात करेंगे ब्रिगेडियर अरुण सहगल साहब से, जो पाकिस्तान के साथ ट्रैक 2 में शामिल हुए डिस्कशन में, और पहले भी हमें बता चुके हैं पाकिस्तान के इंटरनल कंपल्शंस क्या हैं और हमारा क्या कंपल्शंस हैं पाकिस्तान के बारे में, एंड रैमिफिकेशंस। एक महीने पहले हम बात हुआ है, एंड ऑफ कोर्स इसके बाद हम बात करेंगे इन ग्रेट डेप्थ द इकोनॉमिक, वाटर एंड फूड इनसिक्योरिटी ऑफ पाकिस्तान। मैं अभी बताना चाहता हूं सबको, अगर एक चीज है जिससे पाकिस्तान उतना आसानी से उबर नहीं सकता, बाहर नहीं निकल सकता है, वो है पानी का किल्लत। ये पिक्चर में देख रहे हैं कि पानी में डूबे हुए हैं, पर एक्चुअलिटी में क्या है कि उनके पास पानी नहीं है। आबादी बढ़ रहा है, पानी नहीं है, वो एक बहुत संगीन किस्म का प्रॉब्लम है, पर वो अगला हफ्ता। आज हम देखेंगे पाकिस्तान एज अ बैटल ग्राउंड स्टेट। पाकिस्तान एज अ बैटल ग्राउंड स्टेट, हम उसके बारे में क्यों बात करते हैं। इससे पहले कि मैं पाकिस्तान एज अ बैटल ग्राउंड स्टेट बात करूं, एक आई सॉ दिस इन एडवर्टाइजमेंट ऑन गेम्स में, जो गूगल गेम्स में आते हैं और फेसबुक के गेम्स में आते हैं, वो एडवर्टाइजमेंट आया निकला। ये इज अबाउट अ उम्मा चैरिटी। उम्मा चैरिटी क्या है? उम्मा चैरिटी इज एन अवार्ड विनिंग ह्यूमैनिटेरियन एंड डिजास्टर रिलीफ एड ऑर्गेनाइजेशन बेस्ड इन द यूके। ये बोलते हैं कि वी करंटली प्रोवाइड एंड फैसिलिटेट एड अक्रॉस मोर देन 18 calamity stricken countries worldwide, including Syria, Palestine, Yemen, and Afghanistan. For the first time, if you see in the middle, I'll show it a little closer, this whole slide. आप देखेंगे under the logo of this Ummah charity, it is Syria, Yemen, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Sudan, and Gaza. So Pakistan has made an entry in this League of Nations. So you can imagine the problem in Pakistan, which we don't perceive, but the Ummah perceives, right? Pakistan, जब हम सोचते हैं कि it is coming on the edge of an abyss, this advertisement, इस advertisement चंदा मांग रहे हैं. This advertisement suggests that Pakistan has already fallen to the abyss. But having said that, we will talk today of Pakistan as a battleground state. इसमें क्या मुद्दे हैं? ये मुद्दे हैं कि ये सबसे पहले चाइना हैज इन्वेस्टेड फार टू मच इन पाकिस्तान. इट हैज वेरी हाई स्टेक्स इन पाकिस्तान, चाहे ग्वादर में है, शख्सगम वैली में. अगर कल के दिन पाकिस्तान ब्रेकअप हो गया एंड इंडिया रिक्लेम्स दैट एंटायर एरिया बैक, occupation of Shakshgam Valley by China will become illegal. And China is betting on Shakshgam Valley for water for their chip production. So there are many angles involved. There is an issue of food security. Chinese stakes in Pakistan are very high. For not only that, they have an issue of regional influence in checking India. But then China is a reticent but greedy power. आज तक इन्होंने एक, they have not given even one indication of being able to commit its military. And on the other hand, China does not want, USA does not want China to succeed. USA also seeks to retain its hegemony. Most importantly, the West wants to keep a grip on Pakistan, lest a stray nuke goes there, because they are worried about it, right? There is also a clarity that dono great power, USA and China, will not invest in Pakistan to bail it out. And they will use Pakistan to further their own ends. Now, the third angle of their bailout for Pakistan is the Gulf states and Saudis. They have become more transactional, but उन्होंने काफी कर्जा दिया हुआ है पाकिस्तान को, जिसमें उनको रिटर्न चाहिए, वो वापस लेना चाहेंगे, क्योंकि आजकल पैसा हर जगह महंगा हो रहा है. और इसी बात में इंटरनली अगर हम देखेंगे तो ये जो जितने पाकिस्तानी जनरल हैं, दे प्रेफर अ फ्री वेस्ट टू ग्रेविटेट टू कल के दिन, क्योंकि वो रहते हैं या दुबई में या लंदन में या ऑस्ट्रेलिया में, यूएसए में. कोई रिटायर्ड पाकिस्तानी जनरल जाके चाइना में नहीं बसता, ठीक है? वो अपने बच्चों को चाइना में नहीं भेजता. तो ये एक बहुत कल्चरल प्रॉब्लम है जो हम भूल नहीं सकते हैं, which is a problem for China and the Pakistani army in many dimensions. Then there is an internal dynamics of TTP, Baloch rebels or Pashtun politics, which provides a violent element to this entire battleground. Of course, there is always this imagined existential threat from India, which converts Pakistan into an automatic battleground. और ये it's something like an auto sort button. अगर वो दबा दो तो पाकिस्तान में ये battleground अपने आप हो जाता है, right? ये है मुद्दे जब हम पाकिस्तान एज ए battleground state हम बात करते हैं. इसी के बाद में हमें बात करने के लिए ब्रिगेडियर अरुण सहगल साहब हैं हमारे साथ. सर, over to you. You can take it on. I'm sure you are in the know of all these things and you'll explain these issues much better to all of us, so that we are able to judge at the end of this, where is Pakistan going? Over to you, sir.
Thank you, General Shankar. It's always an absolute delight to be on your show. Before I start, I just want to highlight one small point regarding what is a battleground state.
Oh, please, sir.
Battleground state is a region or a country. It is the site of an ongoing or a potential conflict between opposing forces. This conflict can be a result of political influence, location, or resource, and which makes the state a target of competing interests. This puts the state at the risk of being caught up in the middle of larger conflict or struggle for power. अभी आपने 8-10 मुद्दे जो शंकर साहब से सुने, you will realize that Pakistan squarely lands up in this definition of a battleground state. And this, I want to highlight why has Pakistan become a battleground state from a slight amount of historical perspective. When Pakistan got its independence, Pakistan became part of CENTO. The CENTO and SEATO were two organizations which were created for fighting communism by the West. Now, essentially speaking, Pakistan had no role to play as a part of CENTO to fight communism. But it was this natural perception of threat from India and to join the Western group that pushed Pakistan to become a, a center stage. It is from that time onwards, uh, Pakistan has been a front end of Western strategy, i.e., American strategy of the region ever since its inception. There were couple of reasons why Pakistanis went that route. First was, like I said, first and foremost was to use the US leverage. Pakistan perceived itself a weak state. It wanted to use the leverage to countervail India. Second, it realized that Pakistan, as a developing country with huge amount of internal problems, needed foreign assistance. So CENTO and its relationships with the Arab world at that particular point in time was a perfect rationale for joining CENTO, and which got Pakistan a large amount of India assistance. It also allowed, eventually, the price had to be paid, and the price had to be paid when the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan in 1970s, and Pakistan became then a frontline state where a counter-Soviet offensives were launched and the rise of the Taliban and Islamic militancy started taking place. From that time onwards, Pakistan has got engulfed in the regional geopolitics, not only geopolitics, but entire crux of the counter-terrorism strategy or the policies of this region. And it has something that is why it has not been able to break itself away from it. And Americans leverage that situation by pumping in money and resources to Pakistan and making the Pakistanis fight the American war against counterterrorism. And not only counterterrorism, sorry, for the defeat of Soviet Union. So this is the analogy which I wanted to highlight, particularly as to why Pakistan went the westward way. Now comes the period when Pakistan realizes that Americans are pulling out, Soviets have withdrawn. Now this is a period of sort of they were left on the lurch. So at this point in time, Pakistan realized that they needed a new crutch, and that new crutch was in the form of China. They went to the Chinese. The Chinese were already eyeing in the greater geopolitical setup of the region where the Afghan war was still going on. Central Asia has become a part and parcel of Russian Eurasian dominance. China was trying to create its new BRI kind of a structure, and Americans were losing ground in the region, but they still wanted to remain over there. The Chinese realized that it is important to bring Pakistan in its sphere of influence. And from there onwards, if you recollect, this whole notion of Karakoram Highway and other greater degree of integration with Pakistan started. The another area was that Pakistan were under great sanctions at that particular point in time, and they had no recourse to weapon systems and weapon systems at cheap rates, or what they call at friendship prices. So as a result, what happened was that the Chinese became the new messiah for arms supply to Pakistan, even as the machinations of the Pakistani military with the elite establishment of the United States, the deep state of the United States, continued all during this period. and this was also the period which allowed through China, through North Korea, the Pakistan access to the nuclear weapons. So this is how we have to understand how Pakistan has allowed its geopolitical location to be exploited by opposing forces and trying to manage them. But the sad reality is that it has not been able to do so. Uh, Next, I go to US came back into the region in 2001 with the global war on terror, attack on World Trade Center. Now Pakistan was fully involved and engulfed into this region. United States were using Pakistani space for bases. United States were using Pakistani for as line of logistics or inducting logistics from Karachi port, etc., etc., etc. And now Pakistan had become a full-fledged proxy of the United States in the region. And Pakistan now was totally engulfed in dealing with Taliban, but the Pakistani deep state will continue to play its games as we all understand, as we all know how they managed to prop up Taliban, how they put to prop up various shuras, Waziristan, etc., etc., and that's how they continue to play the game. But now I come back further to the current history. 2021, we see the United States pull out of Pakistan. Now, with the pullout of United States Pakistan, suddenly there's a drop in leverage. Biden administration comes. Trump administration was not very friendly. So was Biden administration. So now suddenly the Pakistani establishment has started to lose ground. United States started withdrew just about everything except for minimal military education programs, as also subsequently now, as recently we all know, they have provided certain degree of equipment, $450 million for upgradation of F-16, etc. But the scenario is that the Americans have by and large lost interest in Pakistan. But that does not mean that Pakistan is being left to its own whims and fancies. There are multiple reasons for it. That the United States will continue to remain engaged in the region and play its role, as we have just learned from the various leaks, Pentagon leaks, that it will continue to engage with the Pakistani deep state for multiple reasons. What are the reasons? One fundamental point is that having withdrawn from Afghanistan with practically no standing in Central Asia, this area is becoming blind to Pakistan, to United States.
USA.
So as this area is becoming blind to the USA, the only rationale that they have, the only place where they have leverages is Pakistan. So please understand that apart from what you hear in the press, apart from where you hear in the press, and apart from what you see, there is an interesting intelligence operations which are going on, which which are important to understand that they will have their significance, and they are important to understand how much the Chinese penetration is. Second point is like the general rightly said, there is this great fear of Islamization in Pakistan, particularly with TTP running on the rampage, Balochistan Liberation Army on the offensive. There is a huge amount of internal turmoil. All these elements are making the story of security of Pakistani's assets, the nuclear weapons, becoming a very, very serious issue. And this is an issue in which world and there is I can say with guarantee there is a coalition of forces globally who are concerned about the security of the Pakistani nuclear weapons. They can talk about any amount, but the fact remains. Third element is that there is an engagement between the ISI, the senior Pakistani military leadership, and the American deep state. This is a very, very old relationship which cannot be taken or overtaken. If you read Wilson Center writings, you read the Stimson Center writings, you read sometimes the Brookings writing, you will see the kind of Atlantic Council.
Atlantic
You will
Council.
see Atlantic Council. You see how they spin the yarn of these things, and so therefore uh, the element of 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 this spin has to be kept in mind, and there is a certain degree of endearment within the American establishment towards Pakistan. And the last point of the United States continued engagement is this: there is a deep state, or there is an element, I would say, the Indo-Pacific lobby in the United States, which feels that Pakistan is now becoming a part of a China-led Indo-Pacific containment strategy. And that is becoming, why it is becoming part of the Indo-Pacific led containment strategy is because China is developing the coastal Pakistan along with access from the western Xinjiang through the Karakoram highway, through high-speed networks, through which has been already created by uh, this communication networks which have been established, and also the satellite linkages and systems and satellite stations that have been created to be able to provide a certain degree of counter value against United States, India-led Indian Ocean-centric collation of forces and creation of a security architecture. So this is an area that's important for United States. So this is something, if you, I'm sure you, a lot of your listeners and people would have heard that there is this attempt to revive the First Fleet, and the First Fleet is something which we all understand is an Indian Ocean centric fleet. And then my extremely last point is that there is also a concern that the Indian Ocean region, the Indian Ocean littoral, can be affected by the Chinese Pakistani network, and Maldives is an example. If you remember Maldives, how the Maldives government is being manipulated through its Islamic credentials. So these are some of the issues that I just want to highlight. I'll come back later to some of these. As far as China is concerned, for China, Pakistan is a frontline state, as indeed India is a frontline state for the Indo-Pacific in the Indian Ocean. China is seeking access to the warm waters of the Indian Ocean through what I call land routes. It is creating a large number of land routes, which are linking, for example, in the Myanmar, it is linking Yunnan through to Indian Ocean through road and land, road and pipelines, rail links. Uh, the famous port in
Kaikafu.
on Taifafu in Myanmar is two single buoy moorings. Highest cargo discharges takes place over there. And on here, then we have the Hambantota, and then coming down further to this thing is the Gwadar. The entire West Makran coast is being evolved into a major security system by the Chinese. It starts from Karachi, where the new berths are being created. Power is being generated through nuclear power. It's a site for building six or four, sorry, submarines. It is also going down to Guada, which is being dredged to take on aircraft carriers. It is also becoming a storage and a technological base for repair and refit of the equipment. And if you link this up with what is happening in Chinese moves in Iran and West Asia, particularly with Saudis, and then you take it further down to Baba Mandel, where we already see the Yemeni Houthis and the Saudis have decided to seek peace, and then you further go down to the Chinese base in what's it called? It's just coming to me. I'll just
No, no,
Chinese
it's
base on east coast of Africa, uh, Djibouti.
Djibouti.
So if you see, there is this whole network is being created, and Pakistan is becoming central to it, purely because Pakistan can become tomorrow. Let me give an example to our listeners. If Pakistan was to quickly move couple of DF-26Ds or 21s into the region and deploy them, just see the kind of range it will create and kind of impact it will have in the region. So it's not something which the Pakistan cannot do. They have a sign, they have an agreement, they have a security pact with China. So this is something which we need to understand, that there are two gravitational pulls taking Pakistan apart. One is the intrinsic relationship with the United States, which have been born out of historical reasons, and the new relationship with China. And China is now looking at, as it gets more and more cornered in South China Sea and East Asia, it is trying to look at the part of its breakout strategy, because China's realized, and we all understand that the greater resource security of China is through Indian Ocean, and that's something which we need to accept that. So if you look at from these two perspectives, we come to a conclusion that Pakistan is in the middle of these two great power struggle. Added to that is Afghanistan. Afghanistan on 15th August 2021 was seen as a victory by Pakistan. And I'm not too sure that on 16th April 2023, Pakistan has the same view. Only 2 days back, the Pakistani army chief said that we have to deal with this menace. We have to cajole them, we have to make them understand, and if they don't listen, then we have to fight them. And today, the situation is that the Taliban led Afghanistan is already telling Pakistan that don't make the mistake or you will face the 1971 kind of a scenario. So the issues are the Durand line, the issues are Taliban sanctuaries, the issues are the support bases that are being created across. We have to understand this, that these are all creations of the Pakistani state, deep state, which is coming back to haunt them. On the other hand, Afghanistan itself is realizing the Taliban government is very smart. They are going more and more along with China, and there are a new axis which is emerging, which is the Afghan, China, Tajikistan, and then going to Turkmenistan, and then they're going towards the Caspian Sea. And there is this whole linkages of the new alignment of China, Russia, and Iran, which is taking place. So what is happening in this, we have to understand is this: there is a certain degree of isolation of Pakistan taking place. That's something which we need to look at seriously. How serious it is, how just it is my idiots like me who's thinking, or can we leverage upon this? The next issue is the Arab world. Like the general very rightly pointed out, the Arab world is becoming transactional. Not only transactional, ITU2 concept is bringing certain degree of coherence, economic benefits, trade and investments, because they all realize that at some stage or the other, the oil is going to run out. And they can only leverage oil up to a particular point. They need to develop alternative investment destinations. India with 3.5 billion economy, jumping to 5 billion economy in 26, 25, 26, jumping to close to 7 to 8 billion by 2030 is an ideal destination. So West Asia's leverage, Pakistan's West Asian leverage is going to decline. It is not saying, I'm not saying that the Ummah and the other people are not going to be aligned, they're not going to give the money, but it is not going to be the bailout packages as seen. And we are seeing the situation right now. So given this perspective, even the last render of the last resort, the Reserve Bank of Pakistan for bailing it out in economic crisis is not going to be there. There's one last point I want to make is, and that is that the in the Pakistani military, there are two schools that are coming up. One is a pro-US element, which is by and large major generals who have studied in schools, colleges, etc., who have been penetrated by the various establishment of the United States. And there is a colonels and below, or brigadiers, some brigadiers, but colonels and below cadres who are going for weapons courses, who are going for training courses, who are going
China.
for technology courses, etc. They are having a very different view. And second thing is the maintenance aspects of the Pakistani weapons and equipment is getting extremely dependent on China. Third element, the entire ISR cover that the Pakistan is getting is again getting very Chinese centric. So there is a certain degree of control on the information, technology, maintenance, and upgrades of equipment which the Chinese are exercising. I'll stop here. If there are any questions, I'll take them on.
Oh, before we, इससे पहले कि we take on questions, I think let me highlight a few issues which you have, spoken of, because I think they are very relevant in the entire context. आपने बोला कि China wants that overland route from Xinjiang down to through Pakistan to hit Gwadar and get into the Indian Ocean region, because Indian Ocean is the resource bank of China, and it needs unrestricted access to this resource bank, right? And it has to beat the Malacca dilemma, which it right. But it's also a fact that any nation which has to become a superpower needs two oceans. Like the Britain always had two oceans. One, they had the complete Indian Ocean and the Atlantic, and the Indian Ocean through India itself. You look at USA, it has the Atlantic board and the Pacific seaboard, and even Russia, when it was a superpower, USSR, it was a superpower, had its two seaboards. And China geographically has no seaboard except the South China Sea, and that too, it's a very constricted seaboard. So getting hold of Gwadar and its communication channels through Pakistan is very important for China. And since they already have a base at Djibouti connected with Gwadar gives them a virtual stranglehold on Bab el Mandab and Gulf, the Strait of Hormuz. So given this, आपने जो बोला है बिल्कुल सही बोला है कि the Chinese have virtually almost in a do or die situation with Pakistan, they'll not let them go. और पाकिस्तान को इतना कर्ज में डुबा दिया कि पाकिस्तान also doesn't have any other place to go, and पाकिस्तान का जितने भी communications, everything is all China centric, so that is not going to go. And the other side of the story, which you also mentioned, is USA cannot let Pakistan go too much towards the China way. Yeah. Right. Having said this, there are also certain constraints. While we all think that China is doing everything, and China is going to go all over the world, there are constraints to China, and there are limitations, severe limitations which China is going to face in this coming decade. But that doesn't stop Pakistan from being a contested state. So, आज तक हमने देखा था कि Pakistan was a frontline state, but from being a frontline state, it has become a battleground state. Now, let me highlight what are the contours of this battle going to be. Normally, जब frontline state था, the battleground state was place like Afghanistan or anything like that, where there was a lot of violent fighting going on. This current battle between China and USA will not be military in nature, right? It will be largely economic in nature. It will largely be one of influence. The largely will be one of control of Pakistan's resources, whether it's military resources, whether it's agricultural resources, whether it's manpower resources, or whether it's physical resources. There will be always a battle for control and battle for the influence of using these resources. So that's the first thing. The second thing the battle will be all about is in some manner how to contain India, because if there is one system which can upset China's apple cart completely, that is the rise of India, right? And if India rises, China declines. That's the equation as it is coming out. So China will do its utmost to ensure through Pakistan that China India is stymied. अगर वो नौबत आया और वो इनफैक्ट आ ही गया, तो Pakistan becomes yet another battleground state in a different dimension, right? The violent aspect I've already said, जो हमारे ब्रिगेडियर साहब ने भी बताया कि यहाँ जो पश्तून और बलूच रिबल्स और इनका क्या आकार होगा, इनका क्या प्रॉब्लम्स होंगे, वो दे विल बी ऑलवेज इन कॉन्फ्लिक्ट विद the Pakistan army as it is emerging. So there is a battleground on that axis also. So आप जिस तरीके से देखेंगे तो पाकिस्तान के ऊपर ये बैटल ग्राउंड का कहानी चलता रहेगा. हमें इससे क्या लेना देना है? पाकिस्तान में बैटल ग्राउंड हो या हो, हमें क्या लेना देना है? पहले तो हमारा सुरक्षा उसके ऊपर निर्भर है और हमारा राइज उसके ऊपर निर्भर है. So that is the thing. The immediate thing is, how will this affect the future of Pakistan? Right? As it is, combine all this with the other things which are going on, what will be the future contours of Pakistan be, and how will this battleground look like in future will tell us what we have to do. So I would like you to look in the future and say, what is going to be the effect of Pakistan? How will Pakistan look like as a battleground, even as a battleground, taking into account some of their internal problems, and how are we going to deal with it? Your take, sir.
Okay. Thank you. The first and fundamental point we have to look at is that how deep is the Chinese penetration into Pakistan, and like we said, that can Pakistan make independent decisions as it immerses more and more in debt? It comes under more and more Chinese influence. So our concerns would be that the coalition factor, the collusion factor between Pakistan and China could become a serious problem for us. And this collusion factor may be, if you are looking at some kind of an escalation scenarios vis-a-vis China, and which I'm sure we'll cover in our China series, which is coming up next. The lot of space, strategic space of Pakistan can be leveraged by China for anti-India operations, etc., etc. Second issue that we have to understand is that up to now, by and large, our navy has been, our maritime forces have by and large been one sector specific. We have looked upon only on the Arabian Sea, that kind of say. We have taken slot security as a given because seas are a part of global commons. They are not contested, etc., etc. But once the like the general rightly said, the Chinese break out from the constricted space of South China Sea, and that is why that's another area that we have to be very concerned about, how they break out from the three straits. This area will become a zone of new conflict, and in which our maritime forces would be equally involved as indeed our ground and other forces in dealing with Pakistan. So I see not an escalation of a direct threat, but escalation of a perceived threat by deployments, by certain escalatory moves in coalition with China, even in the maritime space, as we continue to deal with the last exercise, the Yaman exercise that took place between Russia, Iran, and China, should highlight to us that. And before that, we had that 49 country exercise in by Pakistan, which was not very serious, but the last one was very serious. So what we are looking at is a heightened threat, and with the kind of communications which the Chinese have created, uh, it is always at Shakscam Valley. You rightly brought out. We are looking at an heightened threat scenario in collusiveness. Number two, as with the Americans having a soft corner for Pakistan, with the Americans having a certain degree of necessity to maintain deep inroads into the Pakistani establishment, even their support would not be as forthcoming as we think that it ought to be coming between two strategic partners. There were some writings I read about 2 years back about when Biden came, United States Institute of Peace, Dan Markley's pieces. He talked about the fact is that abandonment of Pakistan is not within the American interest. So
Interest,
this
yes.
whole issue, so this, and my standard thesis for this basically is that incrementally India will have to deal with its challenges standalone. We are a standalone power. We might be a strategic partner of the United States, but there is no heft which the strategic partnership brings, because entire American deployment, etc., along with his allies, is on the East Coast, is Eastern centric, East Asia centric, Western Pacific centric. Nothing is here. There's nothing in South China Sea. It's devoid of any American presence apart from occasional phone ops operations. So India will have to understand that it requires 5 to 10 years of hard work, of Atmanirbharta, clear cut decision making to build up dissuasive deterrence against both China and maintain a deterrence by punishment with Pakistan, to tell them that any escalation would be cost prohibitive. So, this is something which we need to look at.
I think you made a very valid point, sir. In fact, let me connect it up with what you have said earlier. जो आपने पहले बताया, as India bumps up to being a $5 trillion economy and a $7 trillion economy by the end of this decade, if you're a $7 trillion economy, and if you're the third largest economy in the world, you're a power in your own right, and our behavior has to change accordingly.
Yes,
And not only our behavior has to change accordingly, I think our outlook has to change accordingly. If you don't have the, if you still want to get onto the coattails of the Americans and say, look, the Americans have to come and bail us out in this equation, I think we will be totally out of whack. And it is my firm belief, जो ये मेरा पूरा ये दृढ़ निश्चित है कि we have to learn to stand on our own legs with our own strategic formulations. The fact that we are discussing this, that future of Pakistan, the future of Pakistan, the way we are discussing in this session itself and this series of lectures is not being done in USA. It's not been done by China. It's only done by us to find out what is going to be the future trajectory of Pakistan, so that we deal with this accordingly. And we have to
yeah,
deal with this with our you know own ability. So I
yes,
leave this at that because I'm just reinforcing what you have said. An interesting point which you have brought out is the irrelevance of Pakistan. If China continues to circumvent Pakistan, isolate, I won't say isolate Pakistan, circumvent Pakistan through the Central Asian axis, and goes towards Tajikistan, uses Afghanistan, and then hits the Iran and gets that angle through and has an alternate entry, actually it allows, I mean, it gives it the leeway to actually ignore Pakistan completely, right? Then where does Pakistan go? Because we have to also let me put this in a slightly different
Okay,
context, sir.
you're asking me the
No,
question.
yeah, no, let me put this in a slightly different context also. There is also a problem that religious fundamentalism in Pakistan is not going to go, it's there to stay. And at some point of time, if things go down south between Pakistan and China, and if things go down south in Pakistan itself, there could be an overflow into Xinjiang and unrest in Xinjiang also. And this is something which China is cognizant of. In which case will they let Pakistan go? That's the short question.
No, they won't let Pakistan go. But we have to be very clear that at some stage there's going to be coal- coalescing of interests between Chinese and Pakistanis, particularly in dealing with this Islamic threat, which might also enter the through the ETIM,
Through Afghanistan and
in Xinjiang as Islamic State of Khorasan. But I want people to understand from my perspective is that ISISK is not a pro-Pakistani organization. They are anti-Pakistani organization. But my bigger worry is not so much of this coalition between Chinese and Afghans and dealing with the Pakistan and the Pakistan joining hands together as one coalition to deal with the Islamic threat. But my biggest worry is this, is that Pakistan is going to up the ante somewhere down the line, and I see it happening this summer along the line of control. And there, and my concern is, given the attitude adopted by Pakistan onto this G20 tourism meet and trying to demarche so many people, and I find Indonesians are also now suddenly having cold feet. There are there is an every possibility of some large scale attack or some attempted escalation of terrorist violence in the valley taking place. And the whole idea basically is this, is that our entire mood, mind, etc. will shift to that. But my humble submission is this, that the Pakistan's ability to leverage terrorism against India is incrementally coming down. The ability to damage us is coming down. We should not detract ourselves from our other major challenges. We have the capacity and the capability of dealing with this challenge. It'll be one off issue, two off issue, but the Pakistan will continue to play this game because this is the only game in town for them. They have no other game.
it's a
So,
one pony trick, sir.
yeah. So my point is, don't distract yourself
Yeah.
from this, and create a whole kind of halabola press and other people throwing all Pakistan. No, what we need to do is continue to maintain pressure on Pakistan. This is not a period for concessions to Pakistan. And some rightly said, this is not a period for Pakistan has created this whole problem for itself. Let's it stew in its own juice. And
I think that
let it continue to deal with it. And if and when they want to talk to us, then we must set the terms and the norms of the talk. Pakistan will never accept it. Pakistan will never accept it, but we have to be prepared. And please also note that Pakistan can also create a nuclear oriented crisis.
yes.
I do not put it beyond them, and it might happen if the kind of electoral politics and the infighting and the other issues become so so uncontrollable within Pakistan that the Pakistani military uh, creates a false flag operation kind of a scenario over there.
Oh, yes, sir. I don't put anything beyond the Pakistani military because it's a devious military and their turf is at stake today, right? A lot of things about them are at stake. I mean, there are wild rumors flying in the WhatsApp to the thing that, there's a plot to assassinate Imran Khan, to a nuke being put out here and there. So all these stories are on
Yeah.
the prowl, and so we need to think. But what? Let me share with you one sense which I get after today is the sixth session I'm having on Pakistan across different
Sure.
on a right uh, angles of sight. So the general consensus is we need to let Pakistan stew in its own juices,
Yes.
like you rightly said. Second, don't talk to them. And if there are any talks or any parleys to be held with Pakistan, it has to be at our terms and our terms and conditions and not theirs. Third, keep your powder dry and keep the pressure on Pakistan across all domains. And
Yes.
especially keep monitoring the LC and the valley. Don't let your guard down there. And now that we've taken this critical step or a crucial step of holding a few G20 meets either there or in Ladakh, we need to ensure that they are done successfully and that
Yes.
we don't get diverted before that, because that will be a egg on our face if we let anything happen to them, right? And we need to convey it unequivocally to people all concerned that look, this is what we're going to do if anyone feels that anything else, and we can do it in many ways, and I leave it at that. And all this while we have to be cognizant of the fact that what is happening in Pakistan is actually contra-indicative or contra-speculative of what we have spoken today, because
Yes.
the things in Pakistan, the way they're going down the slope, are so fast that none of this what we have spoken might even occur. Events might overtake us, but
Yes.
then that we'll
Exactly.
see. Like that is why I showed that first slide. For the first time in my life, I've seen a chanda being ikkatta crore in the name of Pakistan also, internationally by the Ummah, right? So far, the Pakistanis were asking the Ummah for money for their nukes and etc. etc. And now the Ummah is collecting money to bail out their, as a charity. The next thing is that Mr. Imran Khan, who's likely to be the next prime minister, uh, he's put out some
Yeah.
economic plan. If he does, I mean, as and when this thing, if he right, what's the highlight of his economic plan? The highlight of his economic plan is make non-resident Pakistanis from outside who have gone abroad to put money back into the country, which is the most harebrained scheme of
We
resolving
also
an.
tried. We also tried. We used to also say the idiots. Okay.
So there is no way in hell or high water that Pakistan's economy is going to flip by all these harebrained schemes, right? So if you look at it holistically, Pakistan is going to go through a whole lot of turmoil, and I don't see this turmoil coming out in the next 1 to 2 years. That's the minimum, right? And we'll see this when we as and this is for the whole lot who are listening to us. You'll see this coming out when we do our analysis of the economy, water, and food insecurity, right? And you have to conflate it with the fact that people are today standing in queues for 10 kg bag of water and dying.
Yeah.
Like I said, food distribution could be temporary, but poverty in Pakistan is permanent. Right? That's the
Very
right.
well said, sir. Very well
That's the
said.
larger issue, right? So I think we've covered the whole track what we wanted to cover in this thing of being a battleground state. I'll take on a few questions and then we will see. We'll wrap it up as to where we are going. Okay. Eshan has a question. He says, sir, the Kartarpur, Chandigarh, Karachi, Beijing, London, Toronto, Los Angeles, New York nexus is real and a major threat to India. Your view, sir? If you really,
Okay, yeah,
yeah,
you want me to answer? Okay.
yeah, please say yours,
Sir,
all yours.
sir, Ishan, a good question, but don't, like I said, don't, you know, don't go off track. This is this is a low-level threat which we can manage. I mean, these are typical techniques being employed by various players, and you see where it is coming from. There is a large Sikh population in Canada, the large Sikh population in UK, the large Sikh population in Australia, etc. And this just as the pressure tactics being put on us, and this is what I call a low level, cost ineffective actions by the ISI and the Pakistani cahoots to embarrass India during the year that it is a G20 presidency. It holds no long range threat. We have the capacity, we have the capability, the diplomatic skill, and the heft to deal with it. So I don't think it needs to be noted, it needs to be dealt with institutionally through institutional mechanisms which we have in place. And but to make it bigger than what it is, I don't think will be a correct thing.
Yeah, it's got a lot of eyeballs, especially with that Amritpal saying he's got a lot of eyeballs. Yes, and I think that's what it is, and that's the end of the story. You have to understand, let me put things in a little different perspective than what the brigadier said. Way back in 80s when Bhindranwale came up, we neglected that fellow and allowed him to come up. The Indian state today is not going to make the same mistake. It's not going to stick. The way they've got after this guy Amritpal Singh, because he started exhibiting trends like Bhindranwale. And I think the government is up to it, like what Brigadier Arun Sahgal has said. I think we are far too strong for these small pinpricks. And I also think that the Indian government is far too strong to. I mean, it's got the capability to take all this in stride. So let's be rest assured about it. The next question, Sir Vishwanathan says, Sir, you stated earlier in the series that Pakistan is likely to take land from large landlords for contract farming for China's food security. How do you expect the landlords give up their holdings? Uh, so I'll take it on because this is related to a previous. Oh,
Okay,
you could take it.
if you want, I can also add on
Yeah,
with
please, sir, carry on.
afterwards.
No, no, you carry on. You carry on, sir.
No, no.
I'll,
So, Vishwanathan, this is already happening. Yeah, the Saudis have been already contracted land in Pakistan for contract farming, and 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 this is the landlords make money. Yeah, it's all simple as that. Yeah, it's all economics. So, but the question is, if you are greed, you are poor, you are running out of resources, and land is your resource from where you can grow agriculture and good agriculture produces through, and you have adequate water resources, etc., which you can get from the contracting agency. Then this is a kind of a situation that carries on everywhere in the world. I mean, large tracts of land are being purchased or taken on lease basis by countries which are shortage of food. So I don't think it's and second thing is, I hope you know Manchuria and the Lower Manchuria are the grain belt of China, and China has shortage of food. I agree with you, but they have the granaries of the Soviet Union or now Russia to supply them with as much food as they want. But true. But this is part of a deal with the government will have to enter into with any country which takes all this lead. So I don't think it's a. I mean, it's important, but it's not very serious strategic issue.
right. Only thing I like to add, Vishnathan, is that if this land contracting takes place between China and Pakistan and land is given away to China, the problem will be internal to Pakistan, because land given away to anyone and good farming done and that food going away from there creates internal problems. So there are yet another social dimension with China, which Pakistan has to deal with. Right? I foresee this, and I'll tackle this again when I tackle this issue of food security down the line. Right. Uh, uh, right. Right. Thanks a lot, Dalal. So kind of you. All this money which you people are contributing will go for a good cause, and I'll announce that good cause down the line. I already have something in mind, so it's not to line our pockets. Thank you. Okay. If China needs to control Pakistan in a meaningful way, it needs to pump good amount of money in Pakistan. Looking at the Chinese economy, which is in rough weather now, how long can China sustain this? Sir, all
Well,
yours.
if $45 billion is not good money invested in China, I'm sure Chinese can invest little more money. And number two is, it's an arguable element whether the Chinese economy is in deep trouble. Yes, it's in trouble, but for an ongoing investment which is strategic in nature, as we discussed, I don't think Chinese will cry too much if they have to invest another 10, $50 billion. But uh, we have to take the bigger picture into long. The investments of China, if they are of a strategic necessity, money will always be available. That's the bottom line. So it's the economic decline of China, uh, which is, you are true. It is true that their economy is suffering right now, but it is also showing signs of perking up, like all economies. It's I don't think that becomes a very germane issue in the strategic decision making, but it will be more important for return on investment logic of the Chinese companies. And that's where, so what we probably will see is that so-called free economic zones, etc., are not likely to come up easily in China. The Chinese are not going to bring in a large-scale industrialization of Pakistan, particularly because they say it's waste of money. So what we will see, like we already seen, that the M3 project, the railway project, Lahore Karachi railway line has been discarded. Similarly, large number of I'm sure CPEC must have told you, the large number of other projects have been given the go by. So the Chinese are calculated; they're not foolish. They just don't put money just like that. And like I was telling General the other day, is that to give you an example of the Chinese, in Sri Lanka, in lieu of the money that the Sri Lankans own, they are buying 200,000 or 20,000 monkeys from Sri Lanka, which is becoming a menace in Sri Lanka. So, they'll find something like that to trade. No, it's a fact. It's a fact.
I
It's
agree with
actual.
you. I agree with you. Uh, Sirs, who do you think has an upper hand in the frontline state today, USA or China, and who would harm India more? Sir,
Okay, I don't think there is. Uh, the generals, as far as generals are concerned, they and if you go, I want you to go back to the Bajwa's mm, trip to China and followed by his trip to United States. The generals are more comfortable with the Americans. Generals are more comfortable with the Americans, uh, and as General Shankar rightly said, Chinese are more transactional. So if you're looking for a comfort zone, it is the Americans are more comfortable to them and Chinese more transactional. But unfortunately, the options for Pakistan are very limited. They will have to continue to deal with China uh, to ensure that their power projects, their other investments continue. and they continue to get as much resources from China as possible. But at the same time, there will be an equal amount of effort made to induce United States to invest more money, and the logic will be given that if you abandon us, we will become a red state. So I mean, they are very clever at this thing. I've been for 13 years in dialogue with the Pakistanis on number of occasions. I know how clever they are in their argumentation, but you don't have to get carried away. So, short answer: generals pro-American, but China a necessity.
Nimish Avasti, sir, he says, I think when India reaches a 10 trillion economy in 2035, Pakistan will break automatically by then. If not, then we can project unmatched power. Your thoughts? Uh, yeah. Look, Nimish, I'll put it this way.
Yeah, I think you bet.
2035 is a far way away. We have, still 12 years to go for that. 13 years to go for that, right? So we have to deal with the Pakistan till then. And what's happening in Pakistan is pretty mercurial or pretty fast. What's Pakistan today, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, and they themselves don't know what's going to happen day after tomorrow. So I think we have to take it step by step. We have to take it incrementally. This $10 trillion is not going to come from heaven, right? We have to work for it. And by then, if you're Atmanirbhar, everything, then Pakistan will be irrelevant in any case. As it is, even now, Pakistan is largely, you started making it irrelevant to your entire dynamic. We are discussing Pakistan today. Let me tell you, let me share it with you. 2 months back, if someone had said, look, why will you write an article about Pakistan? I would say, yes, I will write an article about Pakistan, but it will be full of coarse humor and nothing more, right? Because I never found anything great to write about Pakistan 2 months back till the situation started deteriorating. And when the situation started deteriorating, I said, look, there's something different happening in Pakistan for us to start concentrating on Pakistan. And that is why we're looking at it with a lens at this point of time. So in the larger context, I don't think we should worry that much about Pakistan. Even now at this point of time, if probably after this crisis goes a little onto the back burner, and if things stabilize, we might have to take a different look about Pakistan, because we can't be Pakistan centric. The bigger gorilla is sitting on the north, and that's whom we have to focus on. And in fact, that's what we're going to focus on from next week onwards. If I've done 7 episodes on Pakistan, we'll have to do at least 15 to 16 episodes on China to understand what's going on there. Any other views so you have?
No, I agree with you. I mean, I think what is important for us is it's not 10 trillion economy that matters. India has to create a comprehensive national park, which is credible and which makes people understand that challenging India is going to be a counterproductive proposition. Simultaneously, India also has to have a more effective strategic neighborhood policy. We have to endear ourselves more to our neighbors and 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 also ensure that our reach out strategy, particularly in the AFPAC region, we focus on Afghanistan, we focus on Iran, and we focus on Central Asia. For us, isolating Pakistan from multiple directions through good relationships, good economic partnerships, and good investments, I think holds the key. And even more important than that is that we have to create a credible military posture, which is not only land centric, but it has to be also a maritime orientation. I think the time is coming very early where we have to around the 2025, 26 onwards, next 4 5 year down the line, we have to take a much rather greater maritime posture than we have been taking. So it is India's comprehensive national power, India's capability, India's technological capacity, its supply chains, India's trade that will make it the difference, and Pakistan will be irrelevant in that situation.
So the last question. So Pakistan is taking money from all questions. How are they distributing that money? Is there some particular generals have connections with particular countries. Well, so I've taken this because it gives you the humor element in the whole story. Look, Pakistan has always taken money from all countries and not returned one naya paisa. If you think that Pakistan is going to return money to even China, one naya paisa of that 42 odd billion which has been spent, we have missed. I mean, let's not have any doubts. I don't think even the Chinese have any doubts that Pakistan won't repay. Right? As far as money which goes into Pakistan, where it goes, you must actually ask the Pakistani generals because they live in London, they live in Dubai, Palm Jumeirah, they live in Saudi Arabia, they live in islands in Australia, owned islands. One of their chiefs is living there, and it's a very funny trait of the Pakistani army. If you notice, every Pakistani army chief, after remitting his office as a chief, promptly leaves the countries and goes and settles abroad, right? And and this is the case with Bajwa or Rahil Sharif, or for that matter, Parvez Musharraf or Kiani. So you leave it at that. They know how to milk money out of the system, and after all, they have a huge military business and a huge empire. In fact, they're the biggest landowners, and the biggest business in Pakistan is owned by the armed forces. Right. So I think we'll leave this question at that, and that is the virtually the end of all questions. We'll yeah yeah. I think that's all, sir.
Thank you.
That's all, and I must thank everyone who's come to this program today evening, and I also would like to thank Brigadier Arun Sahgal. Sir, it was a very clear way you put across what the battleground state is and what the implications are. And going forward, it gives a great perspective on what the future of Pakistan is going to be. And we're going to end this series on 20th when we discuss the water, economy, and the food insecurities of Pakistan. And then we'll have a summing up as to where we see Pakistan going. But more importantly, from 21st onwards, we're going to start a series on the challenges of China. It's called the China Challenge series. And we're going to dissect China from different points of view, just like we've looking at Pakistan. It's easier to handle Pakistan because it's a crumbling state. But how is it going to be handling China is our bigger worry and our bigger challenge. And that's what we're going to focus on. Till then, Jai Hind and good evening. Thank you, sir, once again.
Thank you very much. It was a great pleasure
Thank
once
you, sir.
again talking to you. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, everybody. Good night.